proactive lodge that engages in things like this, and like I say, it's been a pleasure to come along and talk to you about my reflections on where we are at the minute in unionism, and specifically around the protocol as well. And I'll only speak for a couple of minutes before our main speaker comes up to speak as well. I've been asked to give my opinions. These are my opinions. These are what I believe to be true, and this is where I believe we're at. And I can't help but start off perhaps 2 years ago, on the 28th of September 2021, a few years ago there, when we had the joint unionist declaration, which said, "We, the undersigned unionist political leaders, affirm our opposition to the Northern Ireland Protocol, its mechanisms and structures, and reaffirm our unalterable position that the protocol must be rejected and replaced by arrangements which fully respect Northern Ireland's position as a constituent and integral part of the United Kingdom." Signed by all of the loyalist and unionist leaders of the day. Signed by Billy Hutchinson of the Progressive Unionist Party. Signed by Jim Allister of the Traditional Unionist Voice. Signed by Doug Beattie, the leader of the Ulster Unionist Party. And signed by Jeffrey Donaldson, the then leader of the Democratic Unionist Party. And I know that that's what everybody here wanted to see. They wanted to see all of the leaders of unionism standing together. They got their photographs taken at the front of Stormont, standing against the dismantling of the United Kingdom and standing strong. Because as a politician, I do hear it. I hear it from yous, I hear it from the people on the street, I see it in social media, I hear it from the people that I work with, that they want unionist unity. And we stood together, and we stood on that pledge. So if we stand on the pledge, then let's break down the pledge. So the first thing that we read within that is that we, the undersigned unionist political leaders, affirm our opposition to the Northern Ireland Protocol, its mechanisms and its structures. So what are the mechanisms and the structures of the sea border, of the protocol, of the Windsor Framework, whatever you want to call it? Well, the mechanisms, you can say, are broken down in law. There are laws that exist today that put a border down the Irish Sea. You ask, what can the mechanisms be of the declaration that we stand against? Well, the mechanisms of a border are a border post. The mechanisms of a border are paperwork and checks. Do we have those today? We have a £192 million bill to make sure we have those today. We have 180 staff to make sure that we have those today. We made a declaration. We still stand by our declaration to oppose to the utmost of our ability and the mechanisms and structures. It also goes on to say that we reaffirm our unalterable position. An unalterable position is something that you can't change, you can't break, you can't back away from. You'll never accept a border in the Irish Sea. It's an unalterable position. We made a declaration that that would be our position, and it's still ours and my position. And I hope it's yours as well, unless you know of something that has changed that I don't. It also goes on to say that Northern Ireland's position as a constituent and integral part of the United Kingdom must be respected. As a constituent and integral part of the United Kingdom. Are we different from the United Kingdom as a result of the Windsor Framework? 287 EU laws are 287 reasons why we are no longer an integral part or a constituent equal with our UK citizens in the mainland. Our opposition to the protocol, my personal opposition to the protocol, to the Windsor Framework, hasn't changed, won't change, and can't change. You can talk about diversion or triversion. dual authority over Northern Ireland, third party authority over Northern Ireland. But what does it all break down to? It breaks down to militant Irish nationalism, taking the direction and the focus of the citizens of Northern Ireland away from their birthright, away from a glance from east to west and the bonds that bind us and keep us together as a people, and turns our attention towards the south. So there's momentum towards a border in the Irish Sea. There's economic unity with the Irish Republic. Do we see it manifesting itself in other ways? Is there opportunism from nationalism? £687 million spent by the Irish government to build the infrastructure of Northern Ireland. They're strengthening the ties between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland by rail, by strengthening the rail works between Northern Ireland and Belfast and Dublin, by the A75 road between north and south, between the Narrow Water Bridge by sea, or by water, by road, by rail. Our links with the Irish government are being increased. Now, nobody stands against building infrastructure in Northern Ireland, but it's not the jurisdiction of a foreign power to build the infrastructure of Northern Ireland. I'm an Ulsterman, I'm British, and it's the purpose and the remit of the British government to build infrastructure in Northern Ireland, and it's pushing towards an economic Ireland. There was a man called Charles Haddon Spurgeon at one time who said, given the choice of two evils, choose none. No right-thinking unionist, by definition of the word unionist, could ever consider turning his back on the United Kingdom and propagating an all-Ireland economy. You don't go into government again and say, well, what are we going to do? What's our options? We've no choice in the matter. It's a beaten docket. We're going to have to give up. So maybe we can go in and dilute it a wee bit. You don't be an architect in your own downfall. We're Ulstermen. Given the choice of two evils, choose none. We don't implement our own destruction. There is an election that's coming up, and I'm not going to be naive and tell you it's going to be wonderful. The likelihood is it could hurt. The likelihood is it will hurt. But it may just be that we'll have to take a step backwards in order to take two steps forwards. If you ask what the position of myself is, if you ask me what my position is, given the years of wrangle and hurt, and it did hurt being out of government. Nobody wants to be out of government. Nobody wants to see a dysfunctional Northern Ireland, because we have to be a people whose worth will vindicate our cause. We have to be net contributors to the UK. We have to be a people who they look upon us and see us as an asset. We have to be friends with our Scotsmen and Welshmen and Englishmen. And even in a circumspect conversation before the start of this, we heard about people ridiculing Englishmen who come over to Northern Ireland to help us, who come over to fund some of the resistance to this Windsor framework that we see at the minute. There was no complaints when Englishmen and women and Scotchmen and women and Welshmen and women sent their sons to die in the streets of Northern Ireland that I could grow up a safe wee boy in the Shankill Road. I said I would make this brief, and it will be. You ask me what my position is. My position is that I, an undersigned unionist political leader, affirm my opposition to the Northern Ireland Protocol, its mechanisms and structures, and affirm my unalterable position that the protocol must be rejected and replaced by arrangements which fully respect Northern Ireland's position as a constituent and integral part of the United Kingdom. That's my position. Thank you.